Hi there, and welcome to this tutorial on how to make pieces for the Viking board game Brandubh. As you can see here, I have already made some, or here's some I've made earlier. There are two teams, so you've got the attackers. There are 8 attackers, and there are 4 defenders and a king. And these are my two teams here. The king, you can see, has got a crown, and I've just made my attackers and defenders have slightly different shaped helmets to differentiate them. So I'm going to show you how to make one of these sort of character ones first, and then how to make the simpler flat pieces a bit later. So down here I have one that I have put into its constituent parts. So basically you've got a base, sort of a plinth, which is made from a cube. Let's just make another one next to it. So I'm selecting cube. Now, depending on the size of your board, you can make the pieces however big you want, but the board that I've been doing this latest project, the squares are 20 millimeters. So I've gone for 18 millimeters for the total width and length. See, 19 would be fine, as would a smaller piece as well. So again, height, you can do whatever you want. I'm going to go for about 4 millimeters. Although actually it looks like on this one it's 5, but as I say, it doesn't really matter. So that's step 1. I resized it by using this button here. Now I'm going to put on the body of the character. So I'm going to click on the work plane tool and add it to this top surface, because that's the surface I'm working on. Now the shape I used was down here, called the paraboloid. So I'm going to click that. Because I put the work plane on top of the piece, it's already in position. I'm holding down Shift and Alt at the same time to resize. And I'm going to center that. Although it already looks quite centered, doesn't it? In fact, I might actually make it slightly thinner on both sides, because I've got to fit in a shield on the on one of the sides on this side here. So yeah, it's not going to be exactly the same as my other one, because it doesn't need to be. So I'm just going to align it on this axis, but not the side one. Alright. Second step is to put on the head. Now I'm not going to put the work plane here, because you can see it's all going weird angles. So I'm just going to put the work plane on top of the piece, like the base, like we did last time, and then just make the head to a sort of suitable size. So something, you can do this by eye really. Click on the cone to raise it up, and I might center that on the body. So I'm holding, so the head is selected, hold down Shift, select the body, press align, and I don't want the body to move, do I? So I'm going to click on the body, and then that narrows down the options for aligning the head. So that aligns it in that axis, that aligns it in that axis, and that is now nicely in the middle. It's a bit taller than my other one, that's fine. So you can fiddle around this and make it the size that you want. But yeah, I'm happy with that. Now it's time. Well, you can do it in whatever order you want, but I'm going to do a helmet. Now I'm actually going to use, I kind of slightly prefer the dome helmets actually. These ones look a bit kind of, I don't know, a bit eggy. So let's do the same, pretty much the same as we did with the head. The work plane is still on that base, so I'm just going to leave it there. Choose the dome. And I'm going to try and match the dome pretty much with the size of this, which is 10 by 10 at the moment. So let's just resize this dome to be 10 by 10. Of course, 10 millimeters being 1 centimeter. There it is. And we're going to raise it up to get it in a suitable position. Oh, didn't actually select the wrong thing then, didn't I? So I'm using the cone again. I'm going to align that with the head. So I'm going to hold down Shift to select the head as well. Align. I don't want the head to move, do I? So I'm going to click on the head. And that's narrowed down the options for that. Oh, look at that. That was a good guess. That's almost exactly right. Now I'm going to make the helmet, the dome, a little bit more pointy so it looks more like a helmet. That's pretty good. What you don't want a large overhang here, no more than 1 millimeter, because you'll start to have problems with the printer. some of my pupils made these little bits coming down, so they I'll show you a little bit. I guess you call them nose protectors. So they something like this, and it looked really effective. So I'm going to show you how to do it here. So narrow that down, a bit more sensible size. Just a little piece like this. In fact, I might put the work plane on this side, actually, on the side of the plinth, and then just makes it a bit more intuitive to work with. I'm going to use the keys, and then the cone. Can't tell, but it is actually the cone there. Going to push it forward. Needs to come up a bit, doesn't it? So I'm using the arrow keys on the keyboard to do it. Should we make this look a bit? Let's choose some slightly more helmet-looking colours. Not sure pink is quite right. Oh no, a bit hole. What am I doing? Then we can push that in a little bit more. Can you see it's snapping? It's moving in quite far there, so I'm going to change the snap grid to 0.1 millimeters just to make it a bit more precise. Yeah, and then I might make it a bit shorter. And you could actually rotate it slightly on this axis, so it like this. Yeah, definitely, I like that. It kind of looks pretty authentic. So that's a chin guard. Or no, chin guard? What am I talking about? Nose guard for my Viking. Defender. That was that. You don't have to do that, obviously. That's just a little optional extra. Now we're going to do the shield, which you'll be pleased to know is quite simple. It's just that dome again. And we'll flatten it. Not too thin. We don't want it to be paper thin, because then it won't print. Because bearing in mind, these are really small pieces. So... and I think it needs to be a little bit smaller than that, so I'm going to hold down shift as I resize it to keep it in proportion. Let's push this in here. Now we want to avoid it being floating in midair, so just... well, that's a bit still too big, isn't it? Vikings tended to use round shields, I believe, so that's what I'm going to stick with here. I'm going to keep it as authentic as possible. Like that. And we could centre it, but actually it doesn't have to be centred. It might look kind of more artistic if it's slightly off to one side. Because in reality, Vikings wouldn't be completely dead in the middle. The shield, it would, you know, that's pretty good. Let's check the thickness of that. Okay, so that's still a bit thin for my liking. It might look realistic, but just for the purposes, we want it to be nice and strong. And there needs to be good contact between that and the rest of the model. So, yeah, that's better. I'm happy with that. We certainly don't want it floating in midair. And then I'm going to do the arms. So, I might put the work plane back to normal for now. And for the arms, I just used a shape called a torus, which is this one here. And you have to do some bits of flipping on it, flipping it around first of all. So first thing, I'm going to flip it so it's upright. So using the flip tool. And then we need to shrink it. So I'm going to hold down shift and shrink it to get it roughly the right size. And then I'm going to position it so that it looks like an arm. Looks a bit more like a teapot handle there, so that's not quite right. I'm actually using the keys to do this. Oh, that's pretty good. I quite like that, actually. It's quite a... that looks quite authentic. Bit of a relaxed sort of looking arm, but it's fine. Now, I've got to bear in mind that it's the squares on my board are 20mm, so it could stick out a tiny bit, but actually, let's just, to be extra safe, let's push it so it's pretty much in line. Now, I'm not sure if in real life, I think it would hold the shield, I guess, with the left hand if they were right-handed, because their right hand would be wielding a sword. So, I'm not going to do a sword on this character, but let's just have the left hand wielding the shield. Now, what I did for the left hand was I used the same Taurus, but in fact, I'm probably easy if I show you a bit over this way. I cut some of it off. So, I basically got a cube hole and did something like this. If I move it, it's on the 5mm snap grid, which will work. Let's turn that back to 1. Something like that. Okay, yeah. Now I'm going to group that together. Those two pieces. That's combining the hole and the Taurus to make an arm type shape there. I'm going to move that over here through the body, and then I just rotated it using this, and I'm rotating it to be precise. I'm doing it above. Now what I did, I put it on my one, I put it actually going up at a bit of an angle just to make doubly sure it would print correctly. Technically this is an overhang, but because these pieces are so small, it will manage it. But yeah, just tipping it up slightly like this just makes it print a bit better. And also you don't want the hand sticking through the shield. And also that having that hand going, the arm going actually into the shield is going to strengthen that shield and make it less likely to snap off. It gives it a bit more strength. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Let's check the heights comparison. So that arm shoulder does start a bit higher, so we could raise this a little bit. Not too high, obviously. In reality, I think the shield straps would be a bit lower down, but no, it doesn't really matter. We could move that in a tiny bit more. And maybe down a touch. I don't want it poking out the other side though. Just to get it matching a little bit on the other one. Yeah. You can see there actually it's not going over this. No, I quite like that. I'm quite happy with that. Good. And that is how you make one of the soldiers. I would join it all together now. Group it. And do it from above so I don't accidentally group some of the other pieces. And it's thinking about it. Tinkercad's been a bit slow today. I think there's lots of people using the program, so it takes a while to group together. There we go. That is done. Now, obviously, if that was your King's team, you would duplicate another 3 of them, and to turn them into to other soldiers, the other side. Well, you can either just print them in different colours, or what I would do is just slightly customise them. So maybe change the heights slightly, maybe make one of them a bit thinner. You could actually give the attacking ones a spear, but it would have to be quite thick. So I would, if I was going to do add a spear, I would use a cube again. There's not a cube I can recycle, so I'm just going to have to get a new one. It's far too big. So I'll just make it quite chunky, and I'll have it just literally next to the 2mm. Let's see how that looks. Gonna bring that up. Yeah, that's not too bad. It's thicker than obviously it would be in real life, but we want this to be fairly sturdy. And to put the tip on the spear, I would use this roof pattern. So I'm actually going to put the work plane on top of the spear, because that's the thing I'm working on. Let's look at the dimensions. So it's 2.2 by 2.2. So we're going to make our roof shape the same. If I hold down shift when I do this, it should let me 2.2 do both at the same time. Oh, is he gone? Miles away. Let's put the snap grid up to 1mm. Using the keys here. I do use the keys quite a lot. Okay, I'm going to make it a bit more pointy. That's looking pretty good. I like that. And I'm going to just align it. Is that 2.2? That's 2.2. Let's align it. So select those two things. That's selected. Hold down shift, select sphere, align, don't want the spear to move, so I click on that. Align there. Align there. Job's done. You can combine those two together like that. And you've got a spear. And then obviously you combine that with the shape as well. So yeah, nice chunky spear there. You could probably get away with it being a tiny bit thinner, but that's fine for now. So that's what you do. And then for the king, I would just put, you could make it a bit taller and put on a crown. So let's duplicate it again. You can see how often I just duplicate things. You really want to, make this as easy as possible. And I would ungroup it. And we want it to be really obvious who your king is. So we're going to make him a bit taller. Let's ungroup all of that. Let's put the work plane back to normal. Ungroup it. And we're going to give him a crown instead of a helmet. And we're going to give him change the shape of the shield slightly. In reality, he probably would have had a circle shaped shield. Let's put a crown. Let's make move the head up a bit. Because back in the olden days, kings really would have been, the strongest warriors. It wasn't, Well, I meant to actually enlarge that, so let's put it up. If you weren't a strong warrior, physically strong fighter, you wouldn't be a king in the Viking Age. It's quite often, if another person wanted to take your throne, they would challenge you to a fight, and you'd have to do it. Or you would lose your position. So there's my king. I'm just going to move the shield over a little bit, like that. And let's put a crown on his head. Could be a queen as well if you wanted. Let's put work plane there, and I'm going to use a ring. The head was 10, wasn't it? So I reckon if we go for 11, because we could get away with a 1mm sort of overhang quite easily. Let's use this. I'm going to align that with the head. So shift, select, align, click on the head because you don't want the head to move, and we can preview it. I'm doing it. I've done that correctly. Yep, there and there. Not a bad guess. Something's a bit squiffy here though, isn't it? What's going on with the size? 11 by 11. The head is 10 by 10. Why is that slightly? Seems to be not quite centered. Not quite sure why that is. Let's figure it out. Okay, let's try again. So let's line it just to the head. Click on the head. Oh, maybe I just didn't click on it correctly. Okay, now we need to make sure it's attached and not floating in midair. Nope, that's good, and I reckon that will be fine. There's a bit of his head poking out on top. One or two people I have seen do this. They have actually made a little upright bit here, like a metal thing on here, which you could do in a similar way to this. You could recycle one of these nose parts if you wanted, the nose guard. But for now, I'm happy with that. It's pretty obvious that that's the king. It's taller. It's got the helmet. If you could raise the plinths as well, I suppose would be another way of doing it. I can show you how to do that now actually. So let's select all the parts except the base and group those together. And then we'll raise that up. Let's say maybe raise it another 2mm, and then let's raise the base 2mm just to make it really, really obvious who the king is. It's much more important than the others. Shift, select, so they're both selected, group those together. What I have done is printed the king actually in different colours using different 3D printer filament, which looks quite nice. So sort of I've used silver for the king, and then black for one team, and then white for the other team. I think white for the king's team is what I had. So that's how you make the pieces. I'm going to do a second tutorial to show you how to do the flat pieces, the flat plane pieces, but that concludes this tutorial on the Viking style Brandoof pieces.